because of the landslides. Blocking the apertures has compromised the efficacy of the beam.
It is enough. Corvo is locked in the transit beam. He will be here in a few hours. The mountain shuddered under an impact. The aides become careless. We must hold on only for a while longer. Captain Corvo's reinforcements will allow us to prevail. Carantine worked a whole bank of machines, mecha dendrites waving over his back to plunge unerringly into data ports. 9 servitors worked alongside him with unusual speed, impelled by his automatically enhanced brain.
I am not a strategist, but he comes with 2,500 against 20,000.
It will be enough to stymie them until Lord Gilliman comes, said Dante. He limped up and down the wall of mechanical machines, casting a critical eye over the work of his own subordinates, offering rebukes or direction where needed. All we need do is reinforce the mountain.
But they must get into the mountain.
There is a way, said Dante. Battle noise sounded through the chamber, sometimes amplified, sometimes dulled by the Forest's odd acoustic properties. Dantiok had grown used to it and did not let it distract him from his task. It is vital that the transit beam is maintained. A sudden loss will be catastrophic to the fleet, he scolded one technician. He leaned in to readjust the mechanical focusing array installed in an unimportant seeming chamber 100 meters below. This substream must not decohere.
I am sorry, Lord Dantiok, said the man.
The warsmith continued his pained circuit. He had not departed primary location Alpha since the invasion began, too anxious of mishap to leave the machines in the hands of his servants, especially with Pollux leading the mountain's defense. He was irritable. Part of him wished to be fighting again, to be free of the Forest's obtuse alien technologies. He walked past Carantine and his host of lobotomized slaves. It took all of Dantiok's considerable will not to check the Magos' work too. His concentration fully occupied, he did not see the greasy curl of teleport vapor gather itself at the rear of the tuning stage. His first warning was the bark of a bolter as one of his sentries opened fire. Half a dozen guns replied. The warrior crashed down. Dantiok turned, pain gripping his side. A group of warriors garbed in cataphractii terminator plate stood at the back of the room, the teleport glimmer fading from the planes of their armor. They had not come through unharmed. One was buried halfway in the floor, his flesh and armor fused to the stone. Another stood motionlessly, his armor crumpled. A third had arrived around his armor, his viscera steaming on the outside of his stretched skin. Appallingly, this last lived for long seconds. The organs twitched with dying circulation. An agonized mewling came from somewhere within the scarlet folds of gore. There were still 8 of them, all in the bulky warplate. 7 veterans, their armor decorated with images of horror and death, and an officer sporting a crest of red bat wings upon his cowl. There were 4 ultramarines in the chamber with the warsmith. All were killed quickly, blasted apart by concentrated bolter fire, while their own rounds exploded on the cataphractii's energy fields or bounced from their thick armor. Carantine was not given the option to surrender. His weak spots were expertly targeted. His cranium, power plant, and organ flasks. All were blown apart, and he fell to pieces without the chance to speak. His servitors froze as their data link was severed.
Do not cry out or call for aid,
said their leader, in a voice made grating and ugly by his voxgrim.
If I were to, you would perish, said Dantiok. I think not. My entire force assaults your mountain. I have 500 of my finest about to breach the nearest entrance. There cannot be more than 40 warriors between there and this location. The ways through this mountain are not easily traversed, said Dantiok. The leader walked towards Dantiok, examining the room. He looked longest at the mechanical machine banks. He said nothing for a moment, conferring privately with his warriors.
3 of them stumped off towards the only entrance into the mountain from primary location Alpha. 3 more went out onto the promontory outside the cave. There, steps led up to Pollux's fortress. If they tried that road, Dantiok didn't wait their chances. He willed them to try it. The remaining pair came to flank their leader. His commands done, the leader returned his attention to Dantiok.
I am Krukesh the Pale, Chiroptera of the 8th Legion and the champion in the war against the false Emperor. I claim this facility in the name of Horus, rightful ruler of mankind.
I do not recognize Horus as my master.
That will change.
Will it? You cannot win.
Dear Dantiok, does our presence here not suggest we already have? Said Krukesh. You only delay the inevitable.
You will never get out of this chamber.
I do not think that really matters, do you, Warsmith? I suppose you are going to be tediously intransigent when I ask you to explain the workings of the beacon, so we shall move on to your interrogation.
He gestured at Dantiok.
Take him. We will make him talk.
As the Terminators came to Dantiok's side and painfully forced him to his knees, he cast a sidelong glance at the struggling mechanical machinery. Whole fields of indicator lights glowed red. Without tending, the transit beam quietly failed. The beam fascinated Corvo. It dragged them through the warp at tremendous speed, and smoothly, the fleet's own immaterial drive shut down. There was little sense of the storm racking real space and Empyrean within the glorious Nova. Tranquility reigned. Wanting to better understand, Corvo had gone to his Mechanicum aides. When he asked them how it was done, they became agitated. Their orbetic eye clusters gleamed as inscrutably as always, but the faces of those less altered showed consternation at their ignorance, and their mechadendrites lashed. Exertion at distance, they said. Forced attraction multiplied by gravity lensing. The shunting of excess mass accumulated by quantum entanglement events, allowing swifter travel through warp space. The warp offered shortcuts to locations in real space. The transit beam smoothed the way. Its mass-cancelling effect enabled a craft to exceed the relative speed of light within the warp, a doubling of advantage of speed and distance. A cascade of binaric blurts and machine sounds followed. The usual Mechanicum obfuscation when they did not know what they were talking about. They did not like having their ignorance exposed. Was it safe? He asked. They replied with a collective cybernetic shrug. Nothing untoward had happened, so he could only assume that it was safe. The weighing and trading of risk was the cornerstone of successful theoretical. Still, he was not entirely comfortable. To rely upon the technology of the alien disturbed Corvo. Too many times he had fought against creatures inimical to humanity, and he had begun to form the opinion that all things associated with non-humans were unclean. This prejudice had taken root a long time ago, but it had begun to flourish after Astagar, where he had fought Lorgar's word-bearers and the warp-tainted machines they employed. In felling the corrupt warlord Titan Felghast, he had been confronted by human ingenuity suborned and perverted. Technology employed by alien species was often exotic, difficult to understand. How was it possible to tell whether that power came from the purity of material laws or through the sorceries of the war? The road they travelled engaged with the Empyrean, and so therefore could itself be the product of so-called chaos. What little steps to damnation were they taking by using it? He put such thoughts from his mind. The Lord Primarch himself had mandated the use of the Faros, and it had kept the 500 worlds together. Nevertheless, he could not shake his concerns entirely. He wondered if he ever would. He was glad that such considerations were not his to ponder, and the practicals that inevitably came from them belonged to others to choose. Long may it remain so, he thought to himself. Give him the easily quantified risk exchanges of bolter, blade, and battleship. Those were theoreticals he could comprehend. A shudder ran down the spine of the glorious Nova. Corvo snapped instantly out of his reverie. Helm station, report. Lord Captain, I have detected something disturbing. The ship groaned and rolled sharply enough to counteract the effects of the grav plating. Corvo grabbed at the railing around his command dais for support. We're losing speed, reported his helmsman, Mathers. Is there a problem with our engines? Asked Corvo. Engines are still engaged at full, reported the engineering cluster. Tech adepts there exchanged rapid blurts of information. A rattling groan boomed across the ship. We're gaining mass, Captain, said the command deck head Magos. The Pharos, said Shipmaster Valencia. The beam is failing. Will we be cast from the warp? Uncertain, said the Magos. We'll be torn to pieces, said Valencia. Corvo had been right not to trust it. Cut engines, yelled the shipmaster. Full reverse thrust. Bring our speed down to safe warp engine operating parameters. Engine room, prepare immaterium drive for immediate activation. Now! The order was relayed across Corvo's modest fleet. 5 Ultramarines cruisers beside the glorious Nova and the Watcher of the First Legion. All of them had suffered the same effects. Too late! Cried the helmsman. The road of light blinked out of existence. All hands brace, said Valencia. Reality screamed, and the fleet was cast out of the warp, still traveling at tremendous speed. As an object accelerated, so its mass increased. The Pharos enabled faster travel through the Empyrean by using its sympathetic effects to bleed the extra mass away. Now it was off, and the spilled mass of the ships returned with murderous force. Ships flipped and tumbled, their progress suddenly and catastrophically arrested. Dependent on the nose space of the Empyrean, no human craft had ever been designed to go at such a pace in the world of natural laws. It was too much for the Spear of Hermia. The ship was crushed by its own mass, gone from something as light as air to the density of a neutron star in an eye blink. Its reactor detonated, the star of its death weirdly stretched by the immense velocities of the fleet. The glorious Nova groaned. The pressure of deceleration was unbearable. For all the ship's energy fields and technological tricks, titanic forces pressed hard on Lucretius Corvo. The weight of the galaxy leaned on his chest. Men were flung forwards from their stations. Grav plating peeled away from the deck in long, curling sheets, torn free by their own energies. Servitors were ripped out of their housings. Everyone was shouting. And then, it was over. The ship adjusted to its sudden change in mass, somehow not shattering in the process. Report, said Corvo. He pulled himself up off the floor. Something slid from his shoulder guard. It took him a moment to realize it was one of the bridge crew. The man had been thrown from his station, his ribcage smashed to splinters upon the Ultramarines' armor. Dead men and women were everywhere, flung about like dolls, impaled upon machinery on every tier of the command deck. Fires burned in several parts of the bridge. The armor glass of the gallery windows displayed massive cracks. Were it not for the warp shutters being closed, they might have failed. Back to your stations. Report, demanded Corvo. The living pulled themselves up, feet crunched on broken glass. From a decimated servitor choir, a single damaged servitor repeated, "No, no, no, no," over and over again. Half of the crew were dead. Corvo stepped down from the dais. His chest was bruised. Each breath was hard. The pain subsided quickly, healed with preternatural swiftness by his transhuman physiology. He looked to the shipmaster's throne. Valencian had been reduced to a pulpy mess. Fire crews, to the bridge. Company report. Someone get Vox and Data Squad contact with the rest of the fleet. I need fleet status now, he said. He strode about the room, pulling the unhurt to their feet, comforting the injured brusquely. The other Space Marines on the command deck did the same. The Pharos effect has been terminated, said a young ensign. He sounded panicky, but was keeping his fear under control. Already, Corvo was judging his remaining command crew, seeing how they reacted. He had to reorganize them. They must be prepared for battle. But we are still proceeding at just under the speed of light. Fleet reporting in. Damage on all vessels. The Spear of Hermia is gone, said Mathras. Blood ran from a cut in his skull. Get me full casualty reports. Legionary numbers first, he said. He meant nothing callous by it. He simply had an invasion to execute. Primary assets must be accounted for. Cartography, give me a positional. There are no landmarks, my lord. This will take some time. I am aware. Give me your best extrapolation. Incoming transmission from the Watcher. Activate hololith, said Mathras. A life-size image of Company Master Alcius of the Dark Angels appeared in the air. The commander of the small detachment of the 1st Legion attached to Corvo's command. Surprisingly, the image of Alcius's face was crystal clear, granted an illusion of solidity Corvo had not seen in the hololith since the storms began. Corvo! What by the deeps is going on? The Pharos is out. Then it has fallen, and our task is fruitless. Maybe, maybe not. We must proceed as before, said Corvo. Nothing has changed. We must find a way into the mountain and take it back if possible. If not, we must occupy the enemy for as long as possible until Lord Gilliman arrives. We cannot allow the Pharos to be utilized by the enemy, and it cannot be destroyed unless as an act of last resort. We have lost a ship. We are sorely weakened, kinsman, said Alcius. That is irrelevant. We have lost numbers, but our momentum is largely retained. In Void War, speed is everything. We shall continue as planned. Captain Corvo, called out his cartography officer, I have our position. At current speed, we are 9 hours out from Sotha. That is good news, said Alcius. It is, my lords, and it is not, said the officer. How so? We have to slow down, explained Corvo, or we shall overshoot, and then we will be in no position to do anything. Contact my brother captains. Inform them we shall conduct a strategic review in 25 minutes in the Strategium by Lithocast. Mathras, you are shipmaster now. Chapter 24. Reunion. Fate versus Will. Prophecies. 5 feet of bright steel shone in the gloom, glowing with the inner light of an active disruption field. Kurz shaded his dark eyes, playfully grimacing as if he were engaged in mock battle with a child. Do put that away, brother dear. There is no need. You are no brother of mine. Not any longer, said Sanguinius. He paced slowly around the transept, circling the throne. He shifted the grip on his hilt, ready for Kurz to strike. Kurz was fully armored in filthy blue battleplate. Around its neck seal, his skin was grimy. The lines of the metal were thickly brown with old blood, but not his claws. Hooks on each wrist protruded far past his hands and gleamed with recent polishing. Sanguinius's wings twitched. He doubted he would survive this encounter. Kurz had taxed both the Lion and Gilliman when they had fought him together. But then, as he thought on it, flashes of the future burst in his mind, presenting him with a succession of strikes and counter-strikes. Kurz leaping from the throne, a flurry of blades. Sanguinius gutted. Sanguinius leaping into the air. Kurz struck down. Kurz waiting until Sanguinius was close, then striking his head from his shoulders. Sanguinius anticipating this and burying his sword in Kurz's sternum. He shook his head, dazed. Rapidly unwinding possibilities inundated his consciousness in blood. He attempted to shake them away, but they would not go. Kurz watched him with a species of malevolent curiosity. He idly tapped his long foot on Asgard's breastplate. The fallen legionary's perfect, noble face had the deathless beauty of a sculpture. Sanguinius listened hard to hear if his son still breathed. The soundscape of the hall was his to pass as he would through his post-human senses. Every draft and echo rolled drum loud. The working of Curz's metabolism was the growling of a volcano close to eruption. Sanguinius's own body threatened to smother the sounds he wished to hear. For an anxious second, he detected nothing. Then he heard the whisper of air passing the fallen sanguinary guard's lips, the soft thud of twin hearts. Hope leapt in his breast. Ascalon lives. Curz's lips parted a little to reveal the black stubs of his teeth. Sanguinius balked at the reek of his breath. Curz rubbed a dirty finger and thumb together, a merchant's gesture. Insurance. Nothing more. If you're nice, I'll let you have him back. You have come to kill me, as you tried to kill the lion and Rabute. I have not. Don't lie to me, comrade. Why go to the effort? We both know how this will end. Curz rolled his eyes. How many times must I tell you people that I have left that name behind? Night Haunter. Night Haunter. It's not so hard to remember. He shook his head. Curtains of greasy hair brushed his warplate. Not too close now, Angel. He rocked Ascalon with his foot, as one might rob the belly of a pet. I can end the life of this one in a trice. His ruined smile widened. But I won't. Promise. I'm here to talk. I have nothing to say to you. In that case, I shall go, then. So many profound apologies, dear brother, snapped Curz. I have something to say to you, Angel, or does what I want not matter to the glorious Emperor of mankind? You always were querulous, Curz. Night Haunter, said Curz, with feigned hurt. He slumped back in the throne. Ascalon's armor creaked under his foot as he pressed on it, and he sniggered. The absolute factual nature of it, my brother, is that I am not sure I could kill you if I wished to. He flicked dried blood from under a dirty nail. You and Gilliman speak so often of logic, so let us consider the evidence. In skill at arms, I outmatch you. I always have. I outmatch most of you. I am armored, you are not. Your blade is of simple steel and energy. I have my claws. He tapped the back of one set on the evil armrests of the throne. Try, then, said Sanguinius. Attack. Let us put our relative skills to the test. But there is more to the issue than simple warcraft, Curz chuckled. Both you and I share something. A vision for the future, and that is a great equalizer. When one can guess what the other intends, what would be the point? This is the damn point, said Sanguinius, and angled the tip of his sword at his brother. He leapt at Curz on swift wings, bursting their chains as they snapped open. Curz moved so quickly Sanguinius barely saw him leave the throne. His brother became one with the shadows, his cloak whirling around him. Any other creature would have been undone, but Sanguinius was not. The flashes of foresight grew more intrusive, banging into his visual cortex as harsh as nails. He saw where Curz would be a moment before he was there, and attacked into the future. His sword was met by a claw. Curz's return blow he expected, parrying it with his sword. And the next, and the next. He saw an opening. Curz closed it. Curz moved to gut him. Sanguinius was elsewhere. This went beyond anticipation. He saw. They fought around the throne hall, the Angel and the Night Haunter. At speeds the normal human eye would struggle to follow. They matched each other, blow for blow. Both saw their foe's next movement before it occurred, and countered appropriately. Sanguinius's visions, ordinarily so infrequent, poured through his head in a maddening torrent. For long minutes they clashed, neither able to gain the advantage. By unspoken agreement, the two of them parted. Curz's stink was much increased by his exertion. Sanguinius's flawless skin was sheen with perspiration. They panted lightly.
You see, not quite the same for you, I think, but you have a little insight into what my life is, said Kurz.
He somersaulted backward, landing lightly on his feet by Ascalon.
And that is boringly predictable. I am nothing like you, said Sanguinius. No, said Kurz. All light and honor and hope and glory, he spat bitterly. Whereas I must suffer a life bereft of surprise, each moment previewed before it occurs. Pity poor me.
Why are you here, Kurz? Said Sanguinius. Are you to keep me talking until some guileful trap is revealed? I will not be gulled like our brothers.
No tricks. I speak truthfully. I come to speak the truth.
He smiled widely and bowed. There was a grace to Kurz's movements that seemed obscene when performed by his gangrel figure. His presence was freighted with foreboding. He moved suddenly, almost too quickly to follow. Dark things in dark legends moved so. He stooped and grabbed Ascalon's ankle.
I know,
he said, with childish enthusiasm.
Your next pronouncement is so.
I will call my guard, my sons in gold. They and I will slay you. You cannot stop us all. Kurz mimicked Sanguinius's voice cruelly, imbuing it with a vanity and vapidity Sanguinius feared accurate.
Well, they won't.
And I can.
You saw what I did to the Lion's sons, and to those of the avenging bean counter. I will do it again, and gladly. If that is not sufficient to dissuade you, then the death of this one, so dear to you, so beloved, will be.
You are repugnant, said Sanguinius.
So pretty, so stupid. Father's favorite cockerel, preening in the hen coop. Is monstrousness not rather the point of me? Kurz replied bitterly. Tell me, brother, I am curious. Are you one of the ones who believe our scattering was chance, or one of the ones who do not? I think Gilliman is in the latter camp. I can see the thought ticking round that tedious track of a mind he has, like a rodent in a maze, desperate to find a different way out, but knowing there is only one exit, and a feline waits without.
Tick, 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 he cackled, raking his talons slowly through the air. Claws on the walls. You came to ask me this. You are insane. I came. Kurz shrugged. I am asking it. Does my purpose matter?
Come, Angel. Do you really think it was chance? I want to know. Each one of us was cast away upon a world that turned out to suit our characters perfectly. Characters our father engineered. Furthermore, the characters of many of our Legion's Terran sons were also matched with those of the worlds we were found upon. And, oh yes, we can both see the future. I rather suspect, therefore, that Father can read it like a periodical. Can you stand there and tell me that it was chance? No? No reply?
No, said Sanguinius quietly.
No reply? Or no as in no, you don't believe it?
Goaded Kurz. Sanguinius' sword lowered a fraction. Why he confided in Kurz he could not discern, but the words would out, and he could not have stopped them, even had that been his desire. No, I do not believe our losing was chance.
Yes, yes, you see?
Kurz became excited by Sanguinius' agreement.
A man who plans so long and so hard to be taken in so at the moment of triumph? Nonsense. Congratulations. You are half the way to seeing the truth.
That our father was a liar?
Was,
said Kurz with a smile, his brow furrowing for just a fraction of a second.
Indeed. a liar, and more. For I am a monster because that is all I can be. And you are an angel likewise.
You had a choice, Curse. Father only made us. He did not shape us. Curse's eagerness turned into a snarl.
I was made to be thus. Nothing could change it. I know because I tried. I did.
Curse's eyes gleamed with tears.
For what? So that he might see me suffer as I failed? That he might tick off his observations upon his laboratorium chart? What kind of father makes a child to be one way, then castigates him for being so? You think me cruel? He is crueler. I was to be sanctioned for doing what I was made to do.
He clashed his teeth, suddenly vicious.
How is that fair? How can I follow the man who did this to me?
As quickly as a wave is spent, his ire subsided, and his brittle, agreeable manner returned.
So, you see, he deserved betrayal.
That I do not believe, comrade. Fathers lie to their sons to protect them, to save them. Our father hid himself for untold millennia among mankind, revealing himself only when he deemed the time right. The story of our scattering was a necessary lie, if indeed it is a lie. The difference between you and me is that you see sinister purpose behind his actions. I do not. His secrecy hurt me, Conrad, as much as it hurts you. And the conclusion you have reached hurts me also. But I will not cast myself into despair. That is the true difference between you and me. I will not abandon our father's dream. His plan is for the good of mankind. Curse sniffed. When not threatening violence, there was something pathetic about it.
Good given to a species singularly lacking in goodness. Did you know that here at the heart of Gilliman's perfect little paradise, there are those that are not cared for? I have been hiding in the Illyrian quarters. Robute's vaunted civil codes wrap themselves around the edges of such places, tight as walls, but do not penetrate its wards.
Nighthaunter approached his brother. Sanguinius matched him step for step, keeping the distance between them. Curse dragged Ascalon around like a morose child might carelessly drag a toy, unaware of the damage being inflicted to the things it cared for as it fulminated on some meaningless slight.
I have been there, among the outsiders, the unvalued. They speak of me in whispers. They have learned to fear the dark. But has our brother found me? Has the lion thought to look there or anywhere on the crag? No. Idiocy. I practically shouted to them to come for me. If you would look at this world and see the hope of the future, go to the poor quarters. There you will see the despair of the present. And you know as well as I, hope... and our beginning is so very dark.
Is that what you believe, brother? That all this was inevitable?
I believe Horus's turning was part of our father's intended path.
I do not think so.
Curse threw up his arms, as if he would embrace his brother.
Ascalon's boot clanked on the floor as he dropped it.
See, what a marvelous heart-to-heart we are having. Why should we not? Our brothers have close relationships. Fulgrim regarded Ferrus very highly before he killed him. And then Ferrus was also close to Vulcan. So easy to dislike Ferrus, but so much loved by others. Perhaps there is some hope for me.
There is hope for us all, Conrad.
Curse smirked. No, there isn't. I am hated. You have always hated me.
You are not hated.
I am hated, he shouted. As much as Ferrus was loved. But what of love? It is he that is dead, and I that live. My death will not come upon me unawares, unlike his, struck down by one who professed to love him. With such relationships between our siblings, why should you and I not be close? I will not be so presumptuous to say we are the same. That would be a desperate nonsense. But similar, yes, yes. I think you can see that, can't you? An angel of light.